6 days before the Passover, a dinner was given in Jesus' honor. Martha served, while Lazarus was reclining at the table with him. Then Mary took about a pint of pure nard. I want to talk a little bit about calling because it comes up so much in chapter 12. Calling is so important. It gives our life meaning. And life without a sense of calling becomes, meaningless. Some people have a calling for their whole life. That's called a vocation. I had 3 distinct callings in my life, one to school teaching, one to scripture union, and one into the ministry. And the clearer these callings are, the better we will stand up when things get difficult, which of course they will. But sometimes a calling is only for a season. Sometimes it's only for a day or a single incident. That's what happened with Mary. She anointed Jesus' feet, and it was a calling. How do we know that? Because Jesus afterwards said it was intended that she should do this. That was the good work prepared in advance for Mary to do. How did Mary know? I don't think God sent her a WhatsApp in the morning saying, "Don't forget to anoint Jesus' feet this evening." She simply responded to the prompting in her spirit. And we need to learn to do that. Sometimes we need to begin to practice on the small things. For example, Juan Carlos Ortiz said, "The Lord doesn't speak to me very often about the millennium. But he does speak to me quite often, for example, when I'm coming out of the bathroom and says, 'Why don't you clean the hairs out from the plug and not leave your wife to do it?'" And as we practice on the small promptings, we'll be ready when the big one comes. Many callings are based on who I am, my temperament, my gifts, and that's how it was with Martha. Martha was an intensely practical, down-to-earth person, very pragmatic, no nonsense. She was an excellent organizer and housekeeper. It's not for nothing that the house was called Martha's home. And she was an excellent cook. Now, in the earlier days, she didn't accept that servanthood was her calling, and so she balked against it and complained. But I like to think that as she started to accept servanthood as her calling, the house was filled not only with the fragrance of Mary's ointment, but with the fragrance of Martha's cooking, roast lamb and roast potatoes. But what about Lazarus? Did he have a calling? Lazarus is a more complicated case. Firstly, simply by living his life and dying his death, Lazarus was fulfilling a calling to become the primary symbol of Jesus' power over death. But there's more. He was reclining at the table with Jesus. That's a very rich symbolism. It dates way back to the Exodus when Moses was sent to lead the people out of Egypt, out of slavery to freedom. And he instituted the Passover. And part of the Passover is that at least the head of the home must always recline at the table. That is why today, if you go into a Jewish home, even now, and look at their dining room suite, you will see that the father's chair has arms to it so that he can recline at the table, because free men recline, slaves stand. So Lazarus was declaring, as it says in Romans 8, the glorious liberty of the children of God. But there's more. Reclining at the table with someone was a sign of equality. Lazarus equal with Jesus, that almost sounds like blasphemy. And yet again in Romans 8 it says, we are heirs of God, joint heirs with Jesus. And he was responding to the calling to show our status if we are children of God. But there's still more. Reclining at the table is a sign of being relaxed. Lazarus was relaxed, and I believe he was a relaxing person to be with. He lived in a house of rather talkative women. But there's not a single record of him saying one word in the Bible. He was like my Uncle Howard, very quiet man, but relaxing to be with. I believe Lazarus' calling was to be a friend to Jesus. In fact, he was the only friend Jesus ever had who never demanded anything of him or argued with him. He liked Jesus just because of who he was, not because of what he could get out of him. That's surely a definition of friendship. And so when Jesus came to Lazarus' tomb and wept, the people said, look how he loved him. And that word loved was phileo. I like you as a friend. Lazarus' calling was a very high one.